The power fails at 4:17 in the afternoon, and for the first 11 minutes, almost nobody in the city understands what has actually happened to them. Traffic lights go dark at the exact moment ATMs freeze mid-transaction. Refrigeration compressors in 10,000 kitchens shudder to a stop. The low electronic hum that most people have never consciously noticed simply vanishes, leaving behind a silence so complete that people report it as physically strange. This is not a scene from fiction. Grid failures of this scale have happened before. In Texas in February 2021, in the Northeast Blackout of 2003, in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria in 2017, the pattern of human behavior in the first hour is remarkably consistent. Confusion, then normalization, then a dangerous delay in recognizing the severity of what is unfolding. The average urban resident has enough food in the home to last roughly 3 days, and enough water once the tap runs dry or becomes suspect to last less than 24 hours before real physiological stress begins. Urban survival is not primarily a contest against violence or chaos. It is a contest against time, and the clock starts running the instant the power drops. The common misunderstanding reinforced by decades of disaster films is that a grid-down event in a city is primarily a security problem, a scenario in which the central danger is other people, roving gangs, looting and violence, where survival hinges on weapons and fortification. Emergency management research tells a very different story. The leading causes of death and serious injury are not violence, but a cluster of much less cinematic threats: carbon monoxide poisoning from improperly used generators, dehydration and heat stroke in populations dependent on refrigerated insulin or oxygen concentrators, and traffic fatalities at intersections where signals have failed. During the 2003 Northeast Blackout, hospitals reported significant spikes in carbon monoxide poisoning cases within the first 48 hours, driven almost entirely by people using combustion engines, camp stoves or charcoal grills inside apartments and garages, not understanding that carbon monoxide is colorless, odorless, and can reach lethal concentration in under 30 minutes. The built environment of a city, engineered for comfort and efficiency under normal conditions, becomes a set of silent hazards the instant its underlying systems fail. And the people who die are disproportionately the ones who treated the crisis as a security problem instead of an engineering and physiological one. Water is the first and most unforgiving constraint, and understanding why requires understanding what a municipal water system actually is. City water pressure is maintained by electric pumps distributed throughout the network, not gravity alone. Gravity-fed water towers can maintain pressure for hours to a couple of days, but once electrical pumping stops entirely, pressure begins to drop. A drop in pressure allows contamination to enter the pipe network through cracks, backflow, and compromised treatment plants. This is precisely what happened during the Texas freeze of 2021, when millions of residents were placed under boil water advisories. The first 24 hours of tap water may still appear normal, still run from the faucet, and still look and smell clean, while quietly becoming unsafe to drink. The standard advice is to treat all tap water as contaminated once an advisory is issued, using a rolling boil for at least 1 minute, or unscented household bleach at a ratio of roughly 8 drops per gallon for clear water, or a certified water filter rated to remove bacteria and protozoa. A city is not a self-sufficient organism. It is a machine kept alive by continuous energy input, and every convenience a resident depends on is a thin, fragile translation of that energy. Refrigeration is electricity translated into cold. Water pressure is electricity translated into flow. Elevators are electricity translated into vertical movement. This matters enormously in high-rise buildings, where thousands of residents on upper floors may find themselves physically cut off from the ground level once elevators stop.
a problem that becomes acute for elderly residents, people with mobility impairments, and anyone attempting to move heavy water containers or supplies. During Hurricane Sandy in 2012, entire high-rise buildings in Lower Manhattan lost both power and water pressure simultaneously. Even buildings with intact plumbing infrastructure had no functioning taps above roughly the 6th floor, an invisible electrical dependency nobody had mapped out in advance. It is never one system failing in isolation. It is the cascade of dependencies behind that system failing in sequence, each one hidden behind the last. Food security follows a similar but slower unraveling, and the misunderstanding here is almost the mirror image of the water problem. People fear starvation when the immediate danger is actually food-borne illness from a refrigerator and freezer they trust simply because the food inside still looks and smells fine. A standard home refrigerator will keep contents at a safe temperature for approximately 4 hours after power loss if the door remains closed. A full freezer will hold safe temperatures for roughly 48 hours because a fully frozen mass of food acts as thermal ballast. Bacteria like Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria do not need visible spoilage to reach dangerous concentrations.
The sniff test, the visual check, are simply not reliable indicators once meat, dairy, or leftovers have spent an extended period at room temperature. After Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and again after Hurricane Ike in 2008, epidemiological surveillance identified clear clusters of acute gastroenteritis. Default to shelf-stable, calorically dense foods that require no refrigeration at all as the backbone of any real preparedness plan. Beyond water and food lies thermal regulation, one of the most statistically significant killers in real grid-down events. Air conditioning is a life support system for a significant portion of urban populations, particularly the elderly and people with cardiovascular conditions. During the 2021 heat dome, temperatures exceeded 115 degrees, and the death toll was overwhelmingly elderly residents without cooling. Some of the deadliest documented events have occurred under clear skies and simple heat, precisely because the absence of visible danger caused residents to underestimate the threat. Evaporative cooling through sweat becomes progressively less effective as humidity rises. Fans merely move hot air and can become actively counterproductive. The single most effective intervention is direct evaporative cooling of the skin through wet cloths, combined with seeking out the lowest, most shaded interior space in a structure, since heat rises and basements can run measurably cooler. Communication failure during a grid-down event operates on a timeline most residents do not anticipate. Network load spikes dramatically as millions of people simultaneously attempt to call family, check news, and post to social media. A phenomenon documented repeatedly during the 2003 Northeast Blackout and again after Hurricane Sandy, where cellular networks degraded to near total failure within hours. Residents in a serious extended event should expect cellular communication to become unreliable within the first 12 to 24 hours. Maintaining a physical, written list of critical contacts along with a predetermined out-of-area contact is the evidence-based countermeasure. Outbound long-distance calls or texts to numbers outside the affected area frequently succeed even when local calls within the disaster zone fail completely. A simple battery or hand crank radio provides access to official authoritative emergency information through an entirely separate technological pathway. NOAA weather radio stations maintain substantial independent backup power specifically because their function is to remain operational when other systems fail. An information vacuum becomes filled with rumor, exaggeration, and unverified second-hand reports that spread far faster than any correction can follow. Information hygiene under stress mirrors the earlier discipline around water and food safety, prioritizing official channels over cascading rumor networks. The generator sitting in a garage or an apartment balcony represents one of the clearest cases where the tool people buy to save their lives becomes the tool that ends it. The concentration produced by a mid-sized portable generator running in an enclosed or semi-enclosed space can reach lethal levels within 20 to 30 minutes. Early carbon monoxide poisoning produces headache, dizziness, and nausea, symptoms easily mistaken for general stress or fatigue during an already chaotic event. A generator must be operated at a minimum distance of roughly 20 feet from any window, door, or vent in a completely open outdoor space. Backfeed has killed utility workers who, believing a line to be dead, begin repair work on a line that is in fact live because someone's backyard generator is unknowingly energizing it. The electrical grid is not a simple one-way pipe. It is an interconnected web, and individual actions can create danger far beyond the walls of a single house. The electromagnetic pulse, whether from a nuclear detonation or an extreme geomagnetic solar storm, is not a fantasy weapon. It is a real physical phenomenon. The 1859 Carrington event remains the benchmark case that power grid engineers use when modeling a modern equivalent. The 1989 Quebec blackout knocked out power to 6 million people in under 2 minutes when protective relays tripped in response to induced currents. Vulnerability depends heavily on the length of the conductor involved, meaning long transmission lines are genuinely at risk, while most small personal electronics show far greater resilience. A serious geomagnetic event's real danger is a prolonged, possibly regional grid failure driven by damaged high-voltage transformers that can take months to replace. This reframes the entire conversation toward a population that loses electricity not for a day, but potentially for months. The decision of whether to shelter in place or evacuate is consistently mishandled in popular survival content, treated as a lifestyle choice rather than a dynamic calculation. The most dangerous single activity during almost any disaster is movement itself, worsened dramatically by non-functioning traffic signals and panicked drivers. Post-hurricane traffic fatality studies repeatedly show spikes in vehicle deaths during evacuation windows that exceed the fatality rates from the storms themselves. The legitimate triggers for evacuation include a direct escalating physical threat to the structure itself, such as fire, flooding, or structural damage. In the absence of these specific triggers, remaining in a known, resource-stocked, structurally sound location is almost always the statistically safer choice. The bug-out bag's actual purpose is a 72-hour bridge kit designed to sustain one person through the transition before organized help arrives. A first aid kit weighted towards trauma control, since lacerations, sprains, and blunt injuries are statistically far more common in urban disaster contexts. Copies of critical documents, identification, insurance information, and emergency contacts remain one of the most consequential yet overlooked items in real preparedness planning.